So Adam was just it's one of those people who's around, you know? He was always around.
It seems like he was just always there, always taping.
He was at all the shows. I mean, that was the big thing. It was just like he was at all the shows.
Adam, it's just like he's just a part of my memory of the Chicago music scene.
It was nice to have things that you could count on. Aadam taping was one of those things.
He was just part of the scene. He's not in this for a quick anything. He's in this to be there all the time.
That's part of the reality of his existence. The debates. Is Aadam like a good guy recording this stuff for the band? Or is Aadam like a crazy dude who's totally bullshit, who's like gonna sell it and make a lot of money from it? What is who's the real Aadam?
It's obviously an obsession. It's obsessive to have this many records. It's obsessive to go out hundreds of nights a year to see concerts. There's no denying that it's obsessive. Why me?
It's a relentless quest he's on for some reason. I think it's admirable and kind of lunatic at the same time.
Ivor, come here. Come here.
Obsessive doesn't really begin to cover it with Aadam. He's in a very rarefied group of people for whom obsession is an understatement.
The exact date and where I recorded and how I recorded stuff. Going to tons of concerts.
I had seen his place probably 1990. You know, he had the better portion of maybe 10,000 recordings then. You know, and there was just boxes and boxes and boxes everywhere.
It's crazy how many concerts I go to in a month. And now I don't see this many in a year.
I feel like every city has some sort of live music related character. I think St. Louis has got Beatle Bob. Chicago also has Stax Douglas. I don't think Aadam is as eccentric as either of Stax or Beatle Bob. But Aadam is one of those characters.
Aadam, he's a respected music super fan in Chicago and is part of the Chicago fabric.
Yeah, he is really a huge part of the Chicago music scene, of Chicago music history, for sure.
It was so normal for Aadam to be here at a show recording that it all becomes a blur. So when I try to picture him, you know, was it a certain Caliphone show? Was it, you know, a certain Jeff Tweedy or Wilco show? Was it Loose Fur? I can't even remember the first time he came in, and I can't even remember all the shows that he did. So in a way, that's a beautiful thing because it's as natural as the furniture.
Pop bands, experimental bands, jazz bands, trench mouth, whatever he could record.
He was so omnipresent that I can't remember the first time I saw him.
He was at so many shows that I thought, why record this? Just because it seemed so teeny to me. I was like, this is all right, you know, very few people here, but this is what you like to do. And I always thought it was impressive, but now I really think it's impressive.
He made himself very known. I always thought of him as the kid, you know, the kid that's at our show that wants to tape. He would be setting up mics. He had really, really long hair.
He was always friendly. I feel like he was always doing this with his hair.
Every time I got to the music room door and opened up and saw that equipment in the air, I knew Aadam was around.
He was an organic part of us. It was like all of a sudden it was like, oh, who's that? Oh, that's Aadam. He's taping. Like, okay. Hi, Adam.
At first I thought that he was, part of the crew, like if he was like a roadie or something. But then it became obvious because of it was so many different shows that he was doing his own thing, and he has this weird setup,
I know he tried to be anonymous, and his thing was to be nondescript and anonymous. But I mean, seriously, the equipment back then, it had these mics, like that he would put up on a stand, and 2 mics would stick out, and he had like heavy equipment,
It was Adam with a backpack with, a flutter of activity trying to set things up in this microphone and people getting aggravated around him.
I recall worrying about his microphones because, there'd be a mosh pit forming and these things would be swaying back and forth and Adam would be running from one to the other like, I don't know if you've ever seen those jugglers who put, plates on that long. That one's falling, that one's falling.
He used to plug in back here on this outlet, and he would run an extension cord all the way along the floor, all the way over to here where he would record the band. Numerous times I would trip over his cord. And so I would always be bitching at Adam, like, Adam, don't do that. We ran an extension cord up over the ceiling, over that thing. And then we used to have the cord hanging down here, an extension cord. And we would always tuck it under the fish. And then when Adam would come to a show, he would come up and he would pull the cord down and then he would plug in his equipment. And then after a few years, it was just like we were doing some electrical work here. And so we just thought, you know what? The same idea that we had for running the extension cord down, which was pretty janky, and I was always worried that it would fry out the band. So we isolated the lines and we put in a direct line and a hard line too. So this right here, this is the Aadam Jacobs outlet.
It's fine to just have a memory of a concert and not have a recording. I'm okay with that, especially now that it's been so many decades that I've been doing this. But for a long, long time, it was very important that a recording was made, to me. And at times more important than it should have been. I started recording live concerts off the radio as a teenager, primarily on WXRT. I wanted to record live concerts because I liked what I heard on the live concerts that were aired on the radio. It's evident that live music is very spontaneous, even if they're playing the same songs over and over again. And the production is minimal compared to what happens in the studio. So it's a whole different vibe around any particular song that you love. And so it's a special occasion. A live concert is a special occasion. When I was around 15, this fella had this list of live recordings he was selling. So I got a hold of him and we became friends. And he told me, well, you don't have to just record things off the radio. You can just record things by sneaking in a little tape recorder. I'm like, what? Wait a minute, that's how those Pink Floyd bootlegs I bought were made. Okay. So, first show I ever recorded in 1984 was experimental ensemble called AMM. That it sounds like the music is improvised. Not easily listened to music. I borrowed this little recorder from my grandmother and just brought it along and set it on a seat beside me to record the band. It sounds terrible, but that was the first one. And, after AMM, it was mostly punk rock. And the quality was terrible for a little while. And then I bought something better in July of '84. So I was able to make a little bit better recordings for a while until I started switching to something that was a little bit more professional, making recordings that still sound excellent today.
I think he started in 1984, so I met him about 2 years later, and music was pretty much Adam's life at that point.
Once my little Walkman broke, I started bringing a home cassette deck, which was big, and a couple of microphones, 2 microphones. That's it. But it was heavy and it was bulky. Then I got a smaller portable cassette deck, make things a little easier on myself. And then I started taking feeds out of the soundboard. Everything was straight to stereo. Once it's done, it's done. That was fine for me. This used to tape shows. Jesus, it's been through hell.
I was listening to the show from November of 91 today. The quality blew me away. I mean, seriously, I could put this on Bandcamp right now without mastering it, without touching it.
When I finally heard some of his recordings, I thought they were remarkably good. When I heard all the tales of him having hidden microphones sticking through holes in walls in various clubs, and I kind of imagined that probably the end product wouldn't be that great, but it turned out that he was actually, I don't know, he had some kind of professional pride and skill in what he was doing. So,
what possessed me to do this? I love collecting things. I love music. I mean, come on. It's obvious, but it's also... It's male end, excuse me.
I mean, all the good music in the 80s was underground. It just makes me cringe that people have nostalgia for the 80s, but it's people that didn't live in the 80s that have the nostalgia, because the mainstream culture and music was just horrendous. It's a horrible time. Everything that was good pretty much was yet to find, you know, and one of the places you'd find them would be these little record stores.
He, in addition to knowing a lot of people at clubs because of how he operated, he also knew people at the indie record distributor in town. And he was able to get basically access like a wholesaler because he was buying so much. And so they would let him come, and when stuff would come in, he would be able to go and take first pick and get stuff. And he would also often get stuff for me that he knew I liked, and I would pay him for this stuff, obviously. But he was getting it at wholesale prices, which was nice.
I was in a very fortunate position working in a record store, having access to a record distribution facility, that I could just go and find all this new stuff and just preview it and go, oh, I like this.
Taping shows was only part of his thing. He would listen to any and every record, too. And so he would talk about bands that we didn't know about yet or might never know about, because he, you know, for some reason everybody else in the world is like, should I listen to that record? I just have so many minutes in the day. He just jumps in. No bands were cool and no bands were uncool to Adam. In a time of snottiness, because the 90s were like so many people who we love and maybe who we are, we're so snotty about certain things, or, you know, lines were drawn, you know, at a certain label or a certain kind of this or a certain kind of that. That wasn't Adam at all.
You know, the band comes to town, there's a half a dozen people there, and I'm one of them because I like your single. That was great. I loved that, because then I became friends with fans, friends with bands, lifelong friends with bands.
I thought of Adam as my little brother. Sometimes, you know, I think that's a fair way of describing it.
A little band that would come through, like Big Heifer was like one of those little bands where, like, we just loved them, but they didn't really have a draw. They weren't really bringing people in, but we loved them, and then he loved them, and so all of a sudden he was buddies with them.
Musicians who I've known for decades now, some of whom have gained some popularity, notoriety, and some of whom are just parents who are raising great kids and playing an occasional gig at some small club. It doesn't matter to me. They're people I've known for a long time. They're people I consider friends, and their fame, their importance to other people is wonderful. You know, I want to see friends be successful, but it doesn't put them on any different level, a different playing field level than anybody else I know whose music I love. There's music I love by people who I know and have recorded who just have had no success whatsoever. And there's people I know and have recorded who have had a lot of success whose music I couldn't care less about. But they're really nice people. So, fortunately, those are very few and far between.
Jan and I formed the band in 1983. We had a bass player, Shoo Shoo Bat.
I met Rick in Louisville. and then came up here, and our beginning practices were in his mom and dad's finished basement in Northbrook. So we'd be down there practicing, and we thought, let's sound like New Order. We had all these different things going on in our heads and what to do till we figured out, what our actual capabilities were.
We were not accomplished musicians.
So our limitations formed the basis of our career.
I was learning guitar, Janet was learning drums, Shu was learning bass.
Yeah.
We started playing around, and we just played a lot. Slept on people's couches out of town.
The classic.
Indie band.
I remember the first time I saw them. I had heard a demo on the radio, and I'd heard people talking about 11th Dream Day. And I knew I liked what I heard. I have a snapshot in my head of watching them on the West End stage. And maybe the next day, I think, they did a show at a place called the Artful Dodger. So I would have known them a day at that point, and second time seeing them.
Adam was there at the very beginning. He probably taped every single show of ours ever in Chicago. And I know that Adam records dozens and dozens and dozens of bands, and his love of music goes so wide and deep. But he made it feel like he was our archivist. He was working for us.
Having seen 11th Dream Day so many times, well over 100, I believe, there's a lot of memories I have of 11th Dream Day. I feel like we did have a genuine friendship. They lived in Rogers Park. I grew up on the south side of Evanston. I didn't have a car, but it was only about a 5-minute drive between where we lived. So I would go to concerts with them and come home with them. They'd pick me up, or I'd get to their house, and they'd take me home. So again, a family, in a way. Rick and Janet and me in a car.
At the end of every show, he wanted a ride home, and you're just like, at that, really? Or even just going out of town. Now all of a sudden he's like, Adam's coming. He's like, Adam's coming? How did he get into the car? What's happening there? But he made himself always there.
There was one time I went over to their apartment. Janet put on a record, and I really liked it. And it was the first Yo La Tengo record. And that was really cool to have a memory of hearing that for the first time at their house. Yeah, they've definitely influenced me by the covers they've done. There are a lot of songs that the first versions of those songs I heard were played by 11th Dream Day. And then I get to hear what the song originally sounded like. And they've done that a lot.
When we got signed to Atlantic in '89, he made a cassette he called Beef, because it was playing on the word beat from our record that was out then on Atlantic. And it was a compilation of all the unreleased songs that we had up to that point. And it was really cool. It was covers. I remember there was like a Cubby Bear show that he had taped. And so it was all the unreleased stuff, and it was a really nice gesture.
Well, my memory fails me, but my guess is that I thought it was kind of the meat of the unreleased material. And that's why I called it Beef. There's maybe dozens of 11th Dream Day songs that have never been recorded in the studio that I know of, that only exist because of my recording. Although the fan base may not be very big at this point, I think that those folks who do love them, and they exist beyond me, would really appreciate hearing all that old stuff. Some of the songs are so good. How many flyers do I need from their Tower Records in-store? Apparently all of them. So much stuff. Just shit tons. Both sides of a flyer that I made myself. Jesus Lizard, very famous Chicago band. Yeah, I guess Jesus Lizard probably a little bit more famous than 11th Dream Day now, but...
Adam knew good music. I mean, he was, whether that was a band that was on their way up or kind of in the middle, you could tell that his tastes were not necessarily like the big bands. You know, it was more like kind of the ones coming up from behind, or needed support. He was a supporter of a lot of local bands and a lot of local music.
Many bands asked him to record them, or he would be here sometimes, and a band, when I'd say, Adam's here, and they'd be like, no shit, all right, that's cool. We made his radar. So we realized that it was a thing that like bands wanted, okay? And that they were really like, it was a badge of honor.
Seeing Aadam at all those venues that I wasn't playing, nobody really knew who we were, but I would see Aadam and I'd be like, oh, this band must be somebody. What do they have that I don't have? Like that kind of thing. That's a real marker for me, as far as like when Aadam did start showing up to our shows. It was like, oh no, now we're there. Now he picked us. That's like really cool. We must be cool.
Aadam, a bit of a tastemaker in a sense. When I would see him show up at a show at Metro, I knew that, oh, okay, we're on the right track here. He's, that kid's here again.
Every time I got to the music room door and opened up and saw that equipment in the air, I kind of knew that the band that was there that night might have something going on, because Aadam has a very good ear and always seemed to know what the next big thing might be.
At the time, it was very exciting because there did seem to be a lot of possibility. Chicago wasn't really discovered, as it were, in the national consciousness. It was still, if you wanted to do something in the music business and the film business, you went to New York, you went to Los Angeles, and those were pretty much the options. And Chicago had this very second city, chip on its shoulder attitude about that.
It was very cool. It was a very fun time. The scene was so much smaller, it seemed. I'm certain of it. It was so much smaller. There were fewer places to play. And with fewer bands meant everybody could play more often.
It was a very organic thing. It wasn't like we said, let's make a scene, And it was like, it was a scene. That's what scenes are. They kind of, they should naturally grow and progress and become a thing.
It had the comfort of family. We liked each other. It was not competitive. And it was just a real nurturing scene.
It has a real sense of camaraderie and support. And Chicago, I think people take their job as musicians seriously, and they show up for practice on time, and there's like the working ethic of Chicago, as a working city.
Recording engineers and people who do stuff like that are very open and giving here. Like when we were making a record, I'd borrow some mic preamps or microphones or cables or whatever from other guys. People come over and play on your records. I'd play on other people's records, that kind of thing. I thought that was just life as being a musician. And then I found out that people in New York do not do that. There's no, yeah, you want to borrow my $600 microphone and make your record? Go ahead. You want to borrow this? That shit was not going on in New York. And I was like, what do people do? And that people were like, oh, it's just you stick, it's dog eat dog, and you have to look out for yourself, and you have to get it done however you get it done. And I was like, oh, that sucks for them.
Chicago, for one thing, has always been a really special second home to us. It was kind of the perfect blend of being in Louisville and being in New York in terms of things being approachable. It just feels like a more benevolent, welcoming atmosphere.
Everybody was sort of at the same level, and nobody was really pursuing money or fortunes or fame, or I would say fame for sure. I mean, if it happened, then everybody was like, oh, that's good, that's cool, good for them.
It's always been no expectations in Chicago. Nobody had any delusions of grandeur.
Some people did. And then some of them reached those.
And the ones that did reached it. The ones that didn't, well, we're sitting on a nice couch at least.
I saved up some money to start a record label, and the first record I put out was a Trenchmouth record, and that's why I know Fred Armisen very well, or knew him very well.
I really liked him, and I liked his friendliness towards us as a band, and his love of music. So that becomes a sort of instant secret handshake. When someone's really into music, never lecturing me about music, never telling me what I should listen to, not that, just a fan. He loves bands. I love bands. So that's an immediate thing.
I knew Fred since kindergarten. We were friends from when we were little kids. We both kind of got into punk together at the same time.
I think we started when I decided to move to Chicago for the Art Institute. And like a month later, Fred and Wayne drove out here with all their stuff to move to Chicago so we could start a band.
Fred and I had never been to Chicago. And I remember calling you, Damon, and I was like, you were here like 2 weeks. And I was like, so is it cool? And you were like, yeah, seems pretty cool. And I was like, all right, we're going to move there on that, that recommendation.
We incorporated ourselves into the scene just by playing around. Any venue that would have us, we would go for. And I remember the Art Institute had some like sort of parties, you know, and a loft party. And I have also like my memories of like art school loft parties is like, I love it. I feel like, I don't know, it's just those words put together is great. Like art school loft party, you know, and some venues were wrong, like, or maybe we were wrong for the venue, but I think that's what being in a band is about. You just don't know, and you play anywhere.
He used to be at Launchjacks all the time doing comedy and stuff. Yeah.
I'm sure Adam has Fred Armisen stuff from way back when he was like joking around with Trenchmouth, right?
They would do occasional karaoke nights, maybe one Wednesday a month or something. And Fred would be the host for karaoke nights. And his shtick was being in a character the whole night, usually influenced by some false teeth he bought somewhere. He was so funny in Trenchmouth, but they all were. All four of those guys had a great sense of humor. As the guy who put out their second single, I paid for the studio time, sat in at the studio while the recording was occurring. And, you know, you could see it on stage between the songs, how funny they were, but in the studio they were hilarious. Really funny guys. And Fred's the only one who pursued that.
I ended up working for his mom at a chair distribution company. That might have been the first time I ever worked with a computer. She was very good to me. And also Adam financed our second single. That was the one that we really got into, like, how things look. Damon's a brilliant visual artist. And that's when we were sort of really becoming the band. You know, Trenchmouth, we toured around a lot, and I've never seen a more cohesive recording studio. It wasn't flashy. Like, there was this thing in Chicago where it wasn't about, like, we're going to be at the top of the charts. We got to get on the Billboard, and we got to be on Rolling Stone. It was never that. It was more like, how well can we record? We're going to go to the studio, and we're going to work. We're going to make this thing, we're going to make that, make it sound good. That's my impression of Chicago.
We'll be at Medusa's 11 o'clock this Friday, and buy our single, it's only $3. Thanks again.
In Chicago, there was definitely a sense that, you know, crazier, more outre things happened elsewhere. Chicago was a lot more meat and potatoes, for better or worse.
There are definite parallels between the north of England and Chicago. I like the idea of the town that doesn't really, you know, in north of England, people didn't really care what was going on in London. And here in Chicago, people don't really care what's going on in LA and New York. It's its own place, and there is space to do things.
We're the Meat Guns, we're from Leeds. We are gathered together tonight to celebrate our unfortunate 25th anniversary. Must have been so boring for you for all these years. But...
Yeah. The Mekons loom large in my history. They were a Leeds band when they started in the 70s. They became a Chicago band in the 80s. They're people I looked up to and then met, as opposed to other local bands who I met and enjoyed, and then my interest and appreciation for their music grew as their music grew. You know, we were all infants more or less at the same time. Not literally, of course, but musically. And so with the Mekons, this is a band who I already respect and enjoy, are coming to live in my town now. And there may be no other example of that.
I first came to Chicago on June the 24th, 1985. I met so many people that night that are still my friends. It's very strange. Chicago immediately took on a very different feel to the rest of the States. Within the next couple of years, we've sort of pretty much integrated into the scene here. Now, when I moved here in 91, the Mekons had just been dumped by A&M Records and were having some legal problems. Didn't really think the Mekons were going to continue. And it felt kind of like something finishing. And Chicago and our relationship with this town really helped it kind of come back. People were more interested in the music than the kind of business side. So we actually commissioned him to record a show. I think it was our 25th anniversary. It would have been 2002, which is a long time ago, and that was our 25th anniversary. We wanted to do somewhere where we played the early stuff, because the band started in 1977 in Leeds and was really a kind of very fundamentalist, sort of barbaric, non-musical punk band. So we thought the Fireside Bowl would be a good place. But the Fireside Bowl was this amazing venue that was actually a functioning bowling alley, but people tried to bowl there. People got very drunk there and had punk bands about 7 nights a week, and just thought, this is the place. If you want to capture something of what it was like back in 1977, that was probably the only place in Chicago I could think of that had a similar kind of decaying, decrepit atmosphere. And we thought, we'll try and learn some of the early songs, which was almost like another band, really, the Mekons from 1977. A lot of the people in the current band had never played those songs. We did a few of them live, but to put together a whole set of them. And we thought that'd be interesting to have someone to actually record it nicely. And Adam seemed like the perfect choice because he had that aesthetic down, because we didn't want it to sound like a board tape. We wanted it to sound like mayhem in a room. And I'd heard his tapes, and that's what he did capture, the feeling of what was happening in the room.
The Mekons are still making incredibly inspirational, exciting music.
All my friends have continued to create music into their 50s and 60s. It's like, if you stay still, you die.
Chicago is always respects the stick-to-itiveness. So, Langford's been around forever, and regardless of what kind of music scene you've been in, if you've been around for this long, then you're gonna have the respect and the some kind of relationship with other people that have been there.
Well, Chicago's a ram full of people who just do their own thing, and there's also a lot of support and understanding and tolerance. It nurtured that kind of collaborative spirit that we'd always had about it, and it gave us sort of license to do what we wanted to do. It's a great city for that, for people not putting themselves in boxes.
We all do this for the same reason, right? Like, I got into this because there was nothing else I could do. I loved music. So what you do when you love something is you start being around it and you start having it be part of your life. And that's what I did. And you imagine that's the same thing that Adam did with the taping. It wasn't like he could just do something else. Well, this is what he loved, so he did that. So those types of people all put in the same room together have a shared experience. They have a shared love of something. So you kind of forego any of the issues, any of the problems, any of the things that you don't necessarily agree on, and you focus on the thing you agree with, which is the overarching thing of why you're at that place in the first place, which is music.
In each individual scene, there's a certain family quality. Of course, I'd only see what I liked, so I'd see the same people over and over again. Not just the bands, but audience members. You get to know people, and as you get to know people, they're friends, and friends can be very family-like.
He had to be a teenager, and I got to meet his mom. Judy Jacobs is her name, because, you know, he was here so much, I think that she came to see, like, where is my son going every single night. And she worked at the Merchandise Mart, and she was able to get me like a screaming deal on the chairs that we still use today. And this has been like the Metro chair for over 30 years. So again, you see that there is this intrinsic sort of like family thing.
Lounge Acts was there was a real family vibe, and I'm still close with a lot of those people.
Man, when Lounge Acts opened, that was the spot to play, though.
We opened in September of '87, and we were primarily did mostly blues and comedy to begin with.
I had been managing the Cubby Bear and booking the Cubby Bear, and I was looking for a club. I was trying to open my own club, and so I bought in.
That was in 1989.
1989.
Right. That's
we
when
reopened it as more of a music club.
We also opened up the room so we were able to have a larger, maybe slightly illegal capacity, but it made we put in a bigger stage, better sound system. So it became the Lounge Acts that everybody knows and loves.
Lounge Acts was just great. I saw amazing shows there, and it was just that great medium-sized venue that you could see from every spot all the way back to the back of the bar. You could still see the show. It was a really wonderful venue.
Julia and Sue were like always the coolest, and they're still the coolest people. We'd go in and it's hugs and just like hang out and talk.
Sue would make sure that the pinball machine was in working order for me and make sure it was like all squared away. It's just like little touches like that that made us really crave playing in Chicago. That's the best way I can put it. And it just felt like coming there was like coming home.
We always made sure that everyone that worked there treated the bands like family, like people, and say hello and say goodbye.
And we would, really often put them up either at my house or the bar or the apartment upstairs. I mean, it was noticed, I think, by the bands that they liked coming there because we were women and we were nice and we were like their mommies.
I think the Lounge Acts was really important. There is definite sense of community here that's been helpful, because it's hard to do it. If you're not making much money making music, it's very useful when you at least have the support and enthusiasm of people in the business.
Most of the bands that I was revering back then, they all went through Lounge Acts.
It wasn't just another club, and they weren't just other bands. I mean, that's what made Lounge Acts so great, is that, there were no other clubs like that. You couldn't see these bands anywhere else.
I would say that Lounge Acts was kind of the last vestige of an era of the independent music scene that was independent.
It was a shock when it had to disappear. It was a real drag. Around the country, every band loved, people, touring groups always loved Lounge Acts. It was a special spot.
Lounge Acts closed against our will. We didn't own the building, and our landlord sold the building to someone who at first told us that we could stay, and then with very, very little notice told us we had to leave. Yeah.
It was kind of not a fun time.
No, it was very sad.
When the Lounge Acts shut down, center of gravity shifted to the Hideout, but there was always other clubs that were active and involved.
We used to go to Lounge X for shows, and we used to go to Fitzgerald's for shows and Shuba's and other clubs. Then it was kind of weird because we bought the Hideout. And there were a couple people that were kind of like, oh, your competition. But Lounge X was super cool. Sue and Julia were super nice to us. And they were just like, cool, okay. And then they helped, like they would tell us, here's a band that we already booked that night. You know what I mean? In fact, after Lounge X closed, okay, a number of bartenders came over to the Hideout.
Hey, welcome to Sunday nights at the Hideout. Except for next Sunday.
The Hideout is an ethical club from the beginning. So we were always trying to be a musicians bar. We were always like, we want to be the place where other musicians come to hear other bands. We want to be the bar where bands are formed. There was this intimacy of a community that was happening, but also a suspicion of outsiders, right? So a person with a recorder was sometimes seen as like a person stealing music. Initially, I would see Adam like at a show or something. When he came to the Hideout, my initial thought was like, no, man, not here, man. This is the Hideout. We don't do that. We don't let you steal music, right? You can't be here unless I ask the band. And then I would ask the band, and some bands would be like, yep, we asked him to come. We want him to record our show. He's making a tape. He's going to share it with us so we can use that.
Because how prolific Adam was with recording, that within the network of artists that got around, that in Chicago, there's this guy who records, he'll share the recording with you. It's structurally good for you because you can listen back to your show and maybe help improve. To be honest with you, he never reached out to me to ask to come record a show. He may have a couple of times when he was having trouble getting approval from the band, but for the most part, all the staff at Shuba's knew who he was, knew why he was there, knew he was not doing anything that the artist hadn't approved of. So he kind of just showed up and did his thing. At Shuba's in particular, when you're talking about acts that are selling 50 to 200 tickets, they're not really, they just want as many people to hear their music as possible. And so the idea of somebody coming to them and saying, I would like to record your show. I'm that big of a fan. I respect your music that much. That for an act at that position is interesting to them. I mean, that's just another step in their career as musicians. That, oh, somebody wants to record us. This is kind of cool.
Back then, I was like, he would give us a cassette the next time he saw us of the show.
Yeah, Rick brought a box of some of his cassette tapes. Not all of them.
I've got tons of these kinds of cassettes. There's one from the West End in 1985. This one's from 1985, 1987. Dreamers. This is Dreamers. I can't see it on the glasses, but
decent live recording was treasured by us. I think we had very analyze it, think about what we were doing, how could we improve it, or how did that song sound.
We used to change music a lot in Trenchmouth. We would rework stuff. So we would often want to hear recordings. So it was, we definitely did. We used to analyze and listen a lot.
I don't remember ever approaching him specifically to record a show because he was always recording his shows. So if he was there recording a show, we would be like, let's try to get a copy of that.
Bringing the recording of the previous show was important. Some bands want it immediately. They want it as soon as possible because they want to hear how it was. Some people don't want to hear themselves but don't mind you making a recording. It's just as many personalities as there are people. So
I was a taper too back then to an extent. I was too shy to do it. I'm too shy to go up to somebody and take their picture. Or to put a microphone somewhere where they know I'm taping. I was very clandestine. Adam was totally different. He had no fear.
Adam was pretty ubiquitous, as you're probably getting in the 90s. He seemed to be at every show. I know he would ride his bicycle and go to a gig and record it, and then ride to our gig and then record it. Going to 2 or possibly 3 shows a night is that's a commitment. That's a lot.
This is work. Every night I went out with the microphones and the recorders and setting up and spending a lot of time and downtime, wasting time. it was work. It was work I was never going to be paid for because that was never part of the work. There was never a financial intention. And there still isn't.
It's the fact that he was so consistent that really impressed me. He's like, wow, he is really showing up. I'm sure that stuff isn't easy to carry around. He's certainly not making money on it. Never did I see Adam's tapes for sale or like, hey, don't forget, if you want one of these, it costs this much. Or it was really, it's almost like outsider art in its sense of, you know, not being a part of business.
It's not like he leaks these things out. Like there wasn't a bunch of like Yola Tango, you know, bootlegs coming from Aadam Jacobs's, you know, bedroom.
And for a long time, I was I kept things close to my chest because there were things that I had given away that turned into bootlegs. There were bootleggers that made money off of Nirvana recordings I'd done. There were bootlegs of Sonic Youth that someone was making. I'd go into a store and I'd say, I recorded that. And someone's making a profit off of it. It didn't sit well with me at all because that was never my personal intention.
He seemed to have a very strict ethos about it. I also thought that he was respectful to the bands.
Nobody had the access that Aadam had. Somehow Aadam just became a fixture everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, to not even have to ask, can I come tonight? So I don't think anyone else had that.
If I needed to get on the guest list, I had to worry about that. With a lot of places I didn't need to, so I just walked in. So it can be dicey sometimes trying to get equipment in. Bands know, bands don't know, managers don't know, bands say yes, managers say no. I've gone through all of that.
You know, I remember I remember that it was never really a request. For Aadam, it was more like, well, this is what I do. So of course you're going to let me do this here. And back then, you know, I was a young whippersnapper. I didn't really know what was supposed to be and what was not supposed to be. So I was like, okay. And only as time goes by, you start realizing, well, wait a minute, you know, if a show's sold out, does that mean that Aadam automatically gets in? Well, of course it does. He's taping the show. He's archiving things.
At Lounge X, it was stated you have to have permission. And I do think once in a while we're like, Aadam, can you call us and ask if you can come? I mean, sometimes, you know, things get a little annoying sometimes.
It was irritating on, you know, there's certainly moments of him just feeling, he should have entry to these shows. He should get it, you know, he's like, well, I'm taping, I get in free. And in my snotty earlier ways, it's like, why do I always get in free? Whatever.
Recording never seemed to be an issue until it did. There came a time where it did become an issue. There were a whole list of punk rock bands in Chicago that didn't want me to record them. And I think it was around that time that I started discovering other bands. And you want to go, I want to go where I'm comfortable and welcome. And venues changed, and I spent more time at Metro. And at Metro, it was so big, I could make recordings, and I didn't even have to ask anybody. And
I mean, Aadam, I feel like could be prickly back then, for sure. I think he's a lot less prickly now than he used to be. His tenacity would sometimes get on people's nerves. I think he was kicked out of the Metro forever, maybe.
There were times when Aadam's recording were more obvious than others. When it was more obvious meant that he had clearance from the band. And less obvious meant that he probably didn't. We were trying to be as professional as possible. And we just wanted to treat the bands with ultimate respect and ultimate sort of like honesty. And what bothered me was that there was recordings that were going on in the venue unbeknownst to some of the artists.
There are places that a band plays when they're getting famous, when they're getting visibility, okay? If you play the Metro, you're freaking making it. You're playing to 1,000 people. And Aadam has recorded lots of shows at the Metro, okay? And, well, with a little period for a while in between. But the weird thing was, Aadam was always, like I said, slip in, slip out. He was super cool here at the Hideout. He was having a crazy night or did some crazy shit at the Metro. I gotta tell you, I was on Joe's side.
Did they know? They didn't know. Nobody knew, and I wasn't trading the tapes around, supplying people with these recordings. So it was like nobody even knew that the recordings exist. I mean, till to this day, artists don't know the recordings exist that I made of them. In places specifically like Metro, because they were bigger, because it was super easy to make a recording without having to go through the stress of asking permission. Because when one asks permission and someone says no, and you want to do it anyway, well, that's going against their wishes. But if they never tell you no because you never asked them, then it's a whole different feel.
That set off a bit of an alarm. As the promoter and as the venue owner, I then shouldered the responsibility. And so he had to sit on the bench, as I say, for a bit. But, you know, I have no axe to grind with Adam whatsoever. So when Scott Booker and Wayne Coyne, the Flaming Lips, called me and said, "How do you feel about Adam?" And I said, I have no problem with Adam. If he wants to come to the show, it's fine. And so a whole new era was ushered in via the Flaming Lips, which, of course, Adam was certainly one of the first people on that.
Here's a show of the Flaming Lips that I saw at Marquette University in Milwaukee in the afternoon, 3:30 sharp. That was a great Flaming Lips show. They really tore the place apart. It was a really good time for the Flaming Lips. And Nirvana was supposed to open, but they canceled.
You know, in retrospect, you understand that that's what it takes to have this vision, you know, whether, I don't know if he started off with this vision that that's what he was going to do, but you do understand that sometimes it takes some irritating qualities to just doggedly do the thing you're going to do and be undaunted.
Okay, kiddo, we gotta get some music. Meow! So this is the LP room. And the office / guest bedroom. This is the library. And then this is where all the live recordings are. In here.
Oh. How old is he now? Like 40?
No, he's
50,
in his 50s.
52.
50s.
He's 52.
I can't.
He's a year older than I am.
Get that.
I cannot believe that at all. It's crazy to me. I just don't know. Like, I'm interested to know if Adam ever foresaw what's happening now when he's definitely probably not when he started doing it. But as he got so much over the decades, I wonder if it, started weighing on him. What's going to happen? This is important. Like in the beginning, I feel like he probably didn't know that what he was doing was important and that it was going to be important in the future. I feel like he was just like, I want to take this, but I don't really know.
Well, he moved them 3 times.
Yeah.
So at that point, that has to be like your life's work.
I knew I was doing something right all along. It was intuitive to me to how to do this correctly, and I know that it's not intuitive to a lot of people because through all these decades I've heard other recordings, and most of the time the recordings are not nearly as good as what I would have done in a similar situation, or I would hope so.
I love that Adam recorded every group. It's like amazing. It's a volatile time period in music in the city here, and he captured so much of it,
It was definitely an obsession. And luckily for us, that obsession was recording the music scene, So the obsession, is this amazing archive. So I'm thankful for that.
Why me? I don't know. But if it weren't me, it never would have happened. There were other people out there recording shows, but not with the vigor that I did. Why did I have to do this? Why was it so important to go out and see these shows? Some shows I didn't even care much for. I was just, no one else is doing this. If I don't do it, it's lost forever. Even if I can't stand these guys, I have a recording of them for posterity. Whatever.
What a mad undertaking. I'm not sure what he gets out of it. As you said, he puts the tapes, he records them and he puts them away. It's kind of fascinating, really. He's documenting a scene almost in real time.
And I remember thinking that, like, man, he's a hoarder. He just has to record, okay, in a negative way. And then I remember seeing Watts Towers, and it's like, what's the difference between a hoarder and a collector, right? The old joke, collectors hang it up on the wall, okay? No, man, he was doing it because he recognized and acknowledged the beauty and the importance. But I think beauty came first.
You have this tremendous pile of audio that allows you to hear the truth about the 90s rather than the nostalgia about the 90s. Hear the truth about the 80s rather than the nostalgia about the 80s. They give you an audio record of the music of an era, of Chicago indie rock music, when the biggest band in town was Naked Ray Gun in the mid-'80s, when the biggest band in town was Smashing Pumpkins, Liz Phair when she was starting out.
Chicago is to me, the best music city in the United States. The breadth of music that comes out of here is astonishing. And part of that comes from that period of time and just it moving and moving wider and wider.
The real history of Chicago and the importance of Aadam Jacobs, people think like, oh, did he get Wilco? Did he get famous bands early on? He has bands that should be famous, but that their music, they made beautiful, amazing music. The real story of Chicago, of the indie rock scene, the last 25 years, is all the amazing things that were done that people don't know about, that didn't become famous.
The historic importance was always there for me personally. Yeah, a band like Nirvana or the Smashing Pumpkins or, I don't know, any number of bands that have gone on to be rather famous. Sure, the recordings are important, but there was no intention on my part to specifically be at the right place at the right time. The right place at the right time was there because I liked the right music at the right time. And I was on the cutting edge of that for a long time, listening to bands long before they were famous, because that was my interest, just as much interesting new music as possible all the time, and I still live that way.
It's only stuff Aadam is interested in. And he's interested in generally really cool stuff.
He has our history of the 90s.
Yeah.
He has the Lounge Acts history. I mean, our memories fade, except for Mark's. And, we could sit down with him, not that we ever have, and say,
yeah.
Who played there on November, that night before Thanksgiving in 1996? And he could probably pull it up, that tape, and we could sit there and listen to it, and it would bring back our memories.
Yeah.
So it's a very personal, I think, thing for us, what he has.
He has our life.
So what he did was, for us, for Lounge Acts, for the other clubs that he's recorded at, he has provided us all with the brick and mortar of our existence.
I think it's important to record or recall the times you live in. It's basically about witnessing these moments in time, and it's an indirect autobiography. It's evidence that you lived somewhere for a time.
Those recordings are treasures now. There's a lot of content there. There's a lot of beauty there. There's a lot of inspiration there. I was young and callous and didn't realize how much importance that would hold later.
I mean, live concert recordings are not they're important to archive because they're not many of them. Yes, certain huge acts have released live albums, and yes, you can go to YouTube and see clips of shows and stuff like that, but full archived live recordings of acts that maybe have gone on to sell 18,000 tickets and he captured them when they were selling 200, that doesn't happen a lot.
If my recording's the only one that exists, it's just like this is it. There's a piece of history that would be only a memory to people if it weren't for the fact that I'd shown up that night. So even though the music or the memories may not mean a damn thing to me, I think that there's a responsibility to history. That stuff needs to be taken care of, regardless of whether I liked it or not.
He really did what he said he was going to do, that he was an archivist of this stuff, that he really did show up with such an intense regularity. In an odd way, it's the fact that Aadam made all these things that is a really intrinsic and important part to that collection.
Aadam did something that nobody else did. And the fact that he just wanted to do it, that was cool enough for me. And looking back on it, I'm like, well, that's the best thing. That's the greatest thing that he could have done, is just show up and record it and be a part of it. And I don't know, it lent an importance to it that maybe it wouldn't have if he wasn't there.
In the moment, I don't think anybody realized it was what he was doing had longevity to it, like it had a real purpose to it. But now when you think back on a period of time and to have it be archived, you realize the importance of a period piece of a slice of our history.
He has multiple recordings of the same people over the course of 10, 20, 30 years. The ultimate beauty of his project is that he gets to show the evolution of performers, the evolution of people. While we were all caught up in the moment, he recorded the moment for us so we could look back and see where we came from and then see the process of where a performer went to.
It's kind of like a laser-like thing, really. I mean, he's taped so many shows in this town. I'm sure Aadam didn't quite know what he was doing or what was driving him to do it. But what you end up with, yeah, it's a body of work. It's kind of similar to what we do. We're making it, we're producing it, and then moving on. He's going to the next show. We're doing the same thing. We're going to the next record.
He didn't set out to create a masterpiece, an amazing mosaic of the greatest music of the latter part of the 20th century and the early 21st century. He was obsessed with doing this internally, not thinking through where it was going to go.
We run the risk of losing a whole bunch of music history. He's doing us all a favor. I just hope he's got a plan for it all.
Tape doesn't last forever, right? Definitely something that needs to be attended to, to take care of it, and cataloging it.
These are digital tapes, DAT tapes.
Okay.
Just boxes and boxes and boxes of them. Within the boxes, they are somewhat organized, but there was some disorganization that occurred during the move.
Mm-hmm.
So I just have to go through every one of these boxes and alphabetize it and then smush it all together into one large alphabetization, like the cassettes are here, where while they're not perfectly alphabetized, at least the letters are amongst each other. The organization is much clearer amongst the cassettes, which stopped in '96, I believe. I don't know, things are getting more organized, which is pretty nice for someone when they take everything off my hands someday. As long as it's labeled, I know where things are.
I've been to his house and seen his archive. The quantity of what he had was kind of alarming. It's a lot. I hope he's left them to a museum or a university.
He always was very coy with it. He didn't know what he was going to do. And he thought that eventually when he was dead, somebody would find it and then maybe either keep the room as it was, just as an archive of an archive. Like, don't even touch any of the tapes. Just like know that this contained music from '85 to 2013 or something when he bowed. But you can't listen to it. I always thought that was cool. That was the coolest idea.
I've been putting this off for far too long. Getting this archive transferred to something where there is no degradation.
I have a little bit of experience in the archival world. He's told me there's a couple of people who've started to do this, do that. And that sounds great. It sounds very promising, but I don't think he's ever really signed on to one comprehensive sort of, we're going to accept the whole collection, we're going to maintain it, we're going to administer it, we'll make it available to people. And my biggest concern is that something's going to happen to him, and who's going to inherit him? And what are they going to do with it? And what are they going to know to do with it? And are they going to get weird and squirrely about, I just want the stuff to be cared for and preserved, and ideally where people can have access to it.
It's for other people. Like, that archive's not going to be any good if nobody listens to it. It's going to be dead.
I just hope that either he or somebody else makes sure that they're protected and, I guess, available for the public at some point. I would love that if there were a way to go to AadamJacobs.org and listen to some of these artists that I booked and he attended, and kind of bring back memories.
Music will always be the most important thing to me because it was so ingrained into myself. I mean, my parents listened to music, but I did this myself. I did myself. I had my mentors, radio station DJs, people in record shops, the fellow who told me, hey, you can go to a concert with a tape recorder and tape it yourself. These are mentors I had, but they weren't my family. I had to find them on my own.
I don't know what to say, except I know that I can't wait.
It was just people that I chose to meet who would influence me in my love of music and how I chose to enjoy it. It's a treasure trove that's stuff of legend, I guess. You know, at this point, it's only legendary because no one really has access to it. I'm trying to get over that. I'm trying to allow myself to let these things out digitally to the public. I haven't started yet, but I'm getting in the mindset to do it because there's a lot of really special stuff in this house that no one's ever heard.
It's priceless. Have I mentioned that? It's priceless.
Where were you? When I was buying you a drink, where were you? When I was crying at home in bed, where were you? I was on tour once with a band from Birmingham, England called the Nightingales, and the opening band, the Victoria Lucas, I overheard them talking about a Mekon song I wanted to cover on the last night of the tour. Juan, the main guy, he knew the song, but the other fella was not sure he knew the song. I'm like, I know the song. I'll do it. He's like, okay, you know the song, you do it. Y'all nice, do you like me? Can I find out about your life and do you like me? Could you ever be my wife? Do you love me? And that just continues. You know, it's a punk rock song.
That was awesome.
Yeah. So,
You're a very generous and very attractive audience. Take care going home. We'll see you again. Bye-bye.